Have you ever said to yourself or others, I'm just a mom? Have you ever wondered what your purpose is in this world and if you're influencing anyone? Through this series, Fabulous Friday feature, we're here to let you know that you are so much more than just a mom by featuring moms who are just like you and who we think are making a fabulous impact on the world. Motherhood is one of the most influential jobs on this planet. In addition to being moms, the women here we're featuring on this show have tapped into a pure joy within themselves that has enabled them to serve themselves, their families, their communities, and therefore the rest of the world. The women on this show are pebbles that cause a ripple effect of positive change in the world. It is my pleasure to bring you our Fabulous Friday feature. Hi, this is Jessica Dugas, intuitive mentor of moms and founding member of the Moms Online Mastermind, where I help you to reduce stress and overwhelm in your life. On today's show, we're welcoming one of my online biz besties, Marcie Masters. Marcie is a small town mom of four making a big impact on a little old spot in Texas. Through her iconic hats, sassy example, and branding expertise, she's helping local and online business owners put their best face forward by helping them align their brand with their personality, passion, and purpose. Join us as I talk to Marcie about the importance of authenticity and branding, no matter which hat you're wearing. All right. Thank you so much, Marcie, for joining us today. I am so excited to, as I mentioned in the other interviews, this has been a lot of fun for me because I know you guys through groups and through talking to you, but I always learn something new through this. So I'm excited to jump into our questions. So thank you for being here today.
My pleasure. I'm excited about it. It's my first interview of the year. Yay.
That's always fun.
Actually, you know what? And actually, it's my first interview ever. I've been featured on, like, I've been guest on podcasts, but it was like guest coaching on podcasts. So I think this is a little bit different. So
yeah, we get to talk about you today. It's all about Marcie. All right.
And what I'm doing right and not where I'm messing up. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I started the show with a moment of gratitude, and I would love for you to mention any mom in your life who has influenced your life and why.
Well, and I watched your interview with Lori, and I kind of knew that was coming, and I was thinking about that when I was watching hers, and because my mom was not a good influence. She's not been in the picture since I was like 12. Mm-hmm. And so I've had like through different phases of my life, there's been different people, mm-hmm. And the one that I think stands out to me the most was when I was in high school, I was living with a friend and her family, and her mom is probably the one that stands out to me the most because I now reference that now that I have teenagers. I reference, her and how she dealt with all of us teenagers, and so she's probably the one I think of the most when I think as far as influencing me as a mom.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. It's an interesting question because there are a lot of people who may have lost their moms, or they were not raised by their moms, or they were raised. We all just have such different relationships with moms in our lives. And so I just love asking this question because whether we think we are or not, or no matter what our situation is, we are influenced by other moms. And it's good to acknowledge that and see where, how did we become who we are? What do we reference when we have teenagers? Okay, so what is the importance? Let's just start off super basic. What is the importance of amazing branding? Why do you like, why do you do what you do? Why is it important?
It's all about, because branding is basically, in essence, uh, the impression that you leave behind with people once they're not interacting with you visually, audioly, I don't know how, but, or anything like that. So once, it's the impression that you leave behind. And, if you want to go even deeper than that, especially with the surge of heart-centered entrepreneurs that are coming into the industry, it's your, it's your legacy. Branding is, I tend to focus on the visual side of it, but branding is more than just the images and the colors and the fonts that you use. It's the overall impression that leaves behind. And so the more senses that you can touch with your brand, the stronger impression you'll leave behind with people. So, visual, audio, emotional, even the sense of smell, touch, taste, all of that.
Very interesting. Yeah. And so you're a branding expert. This is your thing. It seems to me that the branding process is such a personal one. I can remember when I was trying to form my company, and when I was thinking about kind of that energy that I wanted to put forth to other people, it's such a personal thing. Where do you think people get hung up? Because you would think if it was such a personal thing that it would be like, oh, I know exactly what I want. I know exactly what I want to portray. Where are they getting stuck?
Well, there's a few different places that I see people getting stuck. The first one, I think, is the expectation that they feel they have to live up to when they put on take on that role as a business owner and entrepreneur and service provider and all of that. And so, they have this certain expectation of what they're supposed to portray. And so a lot of times when people first come into developing their own business and developing their own brand, they let that lead the way. And, they let that influence their brand, and they're trying to, they're either focusing on what they think other people want to see, or the flip side of that is they're just doing what they think looks pretty. And regardless of whether or not it's really, truly appropriate. The other hang up that I see is people trying to reinvent the wheel all the time. And they don't really have that consistency. When developing your brand, there's two things that every brand needs to be successful. Two, like, there's all kinds of stuff that plays into branding, but when you break it down, like, it all ties back to these two things. You need simplicity and consistency. And if you have those, you can develop a successful brand.
Well, we like to complicate things for ourselves.
Exactly. That's where people get hung up is they complicate the process, and they're like trying to be creative all the time, and and no, you actually damage your brand when you do that. Because, so here's an example. Probably my biggest brand that I worked on, I took complete ownership of this company's brand. It's a local plumbing company. I started with them as like a dispatcher through a temp service, and then like they kept me on full time, and then phone book season came around, and we're in a rural area, and we've got like 5 different phone books from 5 different areas, and they look like a different company in each one, because they let the individual phone book companies design their ad for them, and they had no consistency. And so that's you know, that was the one where I just really like took ownership, and I was like, okay, I told the owner, I was like, so I'm doing this. I'm fixing this for you.
Do you ever feel like there could be too much consistency? Or is it like consistency is always good?
You know, there probably could be too much consistency if, for example, like on, say for example, your Facebook business page, and you're posting things to the feed, and you use just the one picture and the one template, and you know, you don't, there's no difference at all. That could probably be a little too much consistency, because then when you see a bunch of that together, like if someone's scrolling on your page and they see a bunch of the same thing, they all kind of blur together. So, you know, it's good to have like, you know, 3 or 5 different templates and switch them up.
Yeah, I mean, and Facebook doesn't like that either from a marketing standpoint. I think it's funny because we're in some of the similar groups on Facebook for entrepreneurs, and I see a lot of the same things like over and over with the same graphic, the same words, the same everything, and it's like, how many times do I have to see this today? So it's a little frustrating. So I want to know what makes you completely passionate about your work, and what sets you apart from other people that are doing branding.
I honestly, I think that I've always had a passion about branding and just developing that consistent message, which is so funny because I'm a Gemini and we don't like consistent anything.
You're embracing what you need, right? What you're missing, yes. I think.
But there's probably a little bit of selfish motivation there, because I get, like, what really did it for me, I started working in a print shop, and I would play a part in developing logos and business cards and signage and all of that kind of stuff for local businesses. And then being able to drive around town and see a sign and be like, hey, yep, I did that. That's me. Oh, yeah. So, you know, it's functional art for me. You know, it's art that serves a purpose. It gives me that creative outlet. But, you know, I feel like it's got a job to do.
Yeah, it's so remind when you're talking about that. Remember when we were little and we were gonna call into the radio station, and we would call all our friends and be like, I'm gonna be on the radio, you gotta listen right now. And then we would call the radio, and we'd be so excited to hear our little voice, you know, on the radio. I can imagine it's that same sort of like that 5 minutes of fame when you're driving down the road and you see something that you've done, you know, and that's awesome. I think that would for sure give you the motivation to keep going, and the motivation to, it would for me anyway, to continue being a big deal, because that's exciting, right?
Well, and I still get that even online. Like every time you post something with your logo, I'm like,
yes, if you all have seen the beautiful Moms Online Mastermind logo, it is Marcie that finalize that for me. I understand Marcie's struggles as a Gemini because I'm also an air sign, and where we get like these constant ideas, but we don't know how to materialize it. And so like I had this idea in my head, but I had zero clue of what it would look like. And so Marcie did her magic and put it together, and I've gotten nothing but beautiful compliments. Even when everything else in my business might be going wrong, they're like, but your logo's pretty. So it's
funny.
It's always
funny story about the radio thing. It's so they had a kids morning. They had a kids trivia on the morning radio show. And so when I was growing up, like my sister and I called in all the time, and we'd always win stuff through that. And it was so funny. Actually, working in the print shop, I had a lady come in. Never seen her before in my life. And all she knew was, I just introduced myself that my name was Marcie. And that's all she knew. Like, and then she kind of looks at me. We were talking, and she kind of looks at me. Now, this is, a good 20 years later, almost. And this lady looks at me, and she's like, what's your last name? I said, Terrell, because I was married to someone else at the time. And she's like, well, what's your maiden name? I said, Appel. She was like, oh my God, I knew it. I remember listening to you on the radio. When I was a kid, really. You
were branding yourself even then. If you stuck out that much 20 years later, shoot. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So that's one story that proves the kind of small town that you are in. And you're kind of a big deal there with your branding because you've been helping small businesses turn their businesses around through branding and rebranding. One of the things that I know to be fact is that many of the moms that follow this page and watch this show feel like they can't make a difference or that they're just a mom. What encouragement would you have for them to just put themselves out there and know that they can make a difference?
Well, that's a really good question, because we do, and I still feel that, like, as you were saying, you're kind of a big deal with branding locally, and I'm thinking to myself, no, I'm really not. I feel like I operate behind the scenes. And however, a lot of people do recognize my voice from, I still have radio ads playing for that plumbing company that I recorded, 3 years ago or something. And, but, you don't think about the impact that you have a lot of times. But really, all it takes is a willingness to do. A phrase that sticks out to me, you may have heard of her, you may have not. She's a motivational speaker, life coach, all of that stuff. Her name's Danny Johnson. She actually is here local.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, my first interaction with her before finding out who she was my customer at the plumbing company.
Oh, funny.
Yeah. But one of the things that she has said time and time again is to prosper where you're planted. And, when I started working at the print shop, I didn't have dreams and aspirations of going into branding. I was looking for a part-time income to supplement me while I built a Mary Kay business.
Yeah, that's way different. But same in that, with makeup and everything, you're kind of branding yourself, right?
Right. It's true. But yeah, so that's, yeah. But really, that's what she talks about, is just prospering where you're planted, not trying to go out and reinvent the wheel, but just looking and seeing, what you bring to the table, what your strengths are, what you enjoy doing, and just start doing it. And, making a difference, it's a ripple effect. You're not going to just like suddenly make this huge change overnight, but it starts with, one action and then another action. And then it's just a ripple effect. Like I said, I started after the print shop shut down, I started as a part-time temporary dispatcher with this plumbing company. And now, 6 years later, you can still hear my ad on the radio.
That's amazing. So, it's an amazing, how kind of everything is sort of, as Oprah puts it, come full circle. And I love every point of that, especially talking about doing, prospering where you're planted, and is oh my gosh, I could have a whole show about that, because I came into my big spiritual awakening in a place where that's not a common thing to go on. It's very a one track mentality. And so I spent a long time not finding the joy in that and complaining about it and everything else. And then someone said to me, would you have had the amount of growth that you have had? Would you have made the kind of difference that you have made if you were somewhere where you were comfy and cozy and nothing, not out of your comfort zone at all? And I said, no, probably not. And so now I find the joy. So moms, really, take what Marcie's saying to heart about, you don't have to reinvent things. Be yourself. I mean, that's such a huge thing. Be yourself and know that all the little things you're doing are adding up. And it's a big deal. Being a mom is a big deal, whether we think it is while we're changing diapers and helping with homework and all of that or not. It's a big deal. And if you have dreams outside of motherhood, you can get out there and go for it, just like Marcie did, and hear yourself on the radio one day too, which is always exciting. So if our viewers want to connect with you, Marcie, if they are like, I need to brand myself, where do they go to do that? How can they find you?
Well, my website is currently under construction right now because I'm revamping all of my services. I'm coming out with something new and innovative, a different approach to developing a brand, taking advantage of all the cool technology that we have available. And really streamlining the process. It's still kind of hush-hush right now.
Don't tell.
It's a secret. But so right now, people can, the best way for people to find me, reach me is on Facebook. My business page, facebook.com/the Marcie Masters.
The Marcie Masters, the one you hear on the radio. Awesome. Well, all of Marcie's links are going to be above for you guys as well, or below, depending on where you're watching this on, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook or wherever. You will find it in the description of this video. And thank you again for being here, Marcie. And thank you for having such a huge hand in my branding. I feel much more confident in my visibility because of you. So I appreciate you.
My pleasure. It was really a joy to work on that project with you.
Yay. Yes. All right. Thanks so much, Marcie. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you're interested in surrounding yourself with fabulous moms just like the one we heard from today, or becoming a featured mom yourself, I encourage you to join us in the Moms Online Mastermind. You can find out more about our community at www.momclub.online. You're a mom that I believe can make a big difference in this world. We'll see you next time.